Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and I hold in my hand a little book that is very powerful. And it's entitled Start Here, Beginning a Relationship with Jesus. And it's authored by David Dwight, the senior pastor of Hope Church, one of the fastest growing churches in Richmond, Virginia. And he also serves as an adjunct professor at Gordon Conwell and Union Seminaries and serves on the board of directors of Overseas Council. And the reason he wrote this book and what this book about, I think, ends up being one of the great resources of our day. So, David, nice to have you with us. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Perry. Thank you for having me on the show. Look forward to talking with you.
Yeah, likewise. Wow. What made you go down this road?
Hey, first of all, these are really encouraging words. Thanks for saying what you're saying. We're excited about the book, and we really, really believe in it. And what made us go down the road of writing this book was we've had this great and wonderful experience in our church of lots of people who are coming to faith in Christ. And about a year and a half ago, I was on the phone talking with somebody, and I was thinking, what's a great resource I can give them just to help them sort of develop an early root system, just to get some roots in the soil. And I could not think of one book that really, really seemed to kind of fill this space. Lots of great books out there, but I couldn't think of one that would really work for this. And so that was kind of the genesis of what got us going on trying to come up with a resource to help people.
You know, David, there's so many things about this. First of all, there seems to be a below-the-surface hunger for Jesus. I mean, we're seeing more and more people now say, well, let's give this Christianity thing a try. But one of the things they steer away from is with all the perceived rules that come with it. You kind of hit that in the head, don't you?
Well, Perry, when I became a Christian, I was in my college years. And when I was reading the New Testament, which is really reading the Gospels was probably the biggest part of what helped me come to faith. I found that when I was reading the Gospels and I was learning about and seeing and kind of relating to Jesus, this all seemed pretty different than some of what I perceived to be rules-based living that I had heard or seen around various Christian environments and churches. And this idea that this whole thing of Christianity is a living, growing personal relationship with Jesus is really sort of at the core of my life in Christ and what I'd love to help people experience.
You know, again, another great point is, and you deal with it, we have a tendency to get involved in church. I think you likened it to dating Jesus, but never really committing.
Right, that's right.
Which is an interesting scenario, but that's the truth. So many people say, yeah, I'm a Christian, I go to church, I believe, but boy, you can just tell by their lifestyle and their language, they just don't have a relationship with them.
Well, and you know, we do talk about this marriage analogy because of the New Testament analogy of Jesus being the groom and believers being the bride. And we reflected a lot when we look back on our own experiences of dating and so on. And I have a story in there about when my now wife and I were dating. There sort of comes a time in that dating relationship where you begin to say, okay, what are we doing? What is this really about? What are our intentions? And we sort of laugh about it. You know, some people call it the define the relationship conversation, or some people call it the cards on the table. But sooner or later, any committed relationship asks the question, what are we really doing and are we committed? And I think Jesus asks this question of us. And the way he shows his intentions is through what he's done on the cross. He's giving all of himself. And I think that essentially says to us, now, what are your intentions?
Wow. What do you mean by the religion habit?
Well, I think for many people, they can have a sense, although this may not be quite so much today as it was 20 years ago, but they can kind of have a sense that I'm an American, I'm supposed to go to church, and if I just go to church and do these practices, then that's what makes me a Christian. And so we kind of entertain these habits, but they become externalities, and they don't really have an effect on our internal life or on our heart. I remember years ago reading a quote from Chuck Colson, and Chuck said, sitting in church doesn't make you a Christian any more than standing in your garage makes you a car. and the idea was, if it's externalities, it's very easy to miss what Jesus was talking about, and he was really talking about a committed relationship of the heart.
Do you think the average Christian today understands how, I don't know if the word confusing is right, but how difficult it is for those who don't believe in Christ to understand him, to accept him as Savior and completely dedicate their life to them? I mean, that transition's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is a big one. So I think your question, Perry, was, do I think the average Christian today understands that? I probably would say I don't think so. I think it's very easy for people who have been raised in the church to really lose touch with what is a person who's had no exposure to this. What are they asking? What are they thinking? What are they perceiving? And these two worlds can be pretty far apart. I grew up without having any church background, and I distinctly remember my own particular season of really searching. And there was a lot in that where Christians, to be honest, if I could say it gently, weren't very helpful. There was a lot of vocabulary and a lot of platitudes that weren't that helpful to me. Mm-hmm. But, you know, the other thing that I would say, Perry, is I find all the time people are interested and want to talk about religion, and they're very willing to talk about these Christian things. What they don't want is they don't want to be talked down to. They don't want to kind of get a beat down and a formula and a wagging finger. But I find that if people are received with respect and dignity, I find there are spiritual conversations all over the place, and they're really fun.
Is that receiving also accepting them where they are? In other words, we have a tendency to want to change them before we bring them in, when actually bringing them in is what makes the change.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I would say, Perry, when I became a Christian, then I started getting really involved in church. There was a lot of church culture that I then was exposed to, and I would have this wrestling match between what I was reading in the Gospels and what I was receiving in church culture.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things I would say for me about 15 years ago that was significant for me was somewhere along the line, I decided how this person responds is not my responsibility. I don't have to make them a Christian. I don't have to absolutely wrestle them down to lead them to Jesus. I'm just going to try to do my part and ask God to work in people's hearts. And amazingly for me, this has made spiritual conversations so much richer because it removes this, what I think people feel is this unspoken wrestling match in it. Mm-hmm. And I'm removed of feeling that what happens as a result of the conversation and where they go is all my responsibility. And when I remove that and I take my part as serving God and let God do his part in people's hearts, I find this gets a lot more fun and engaging.
When did you go from church culture to relationship with Jesus?
Well, I started with relationship with Jesus, as I was mentioning, in college by reading the Gospels. And then I think for the next probably 7 or 8 years, I was very introduced to church culture because I thought, well, I'm a Christian, I ought to be involved in a church. But then I found I had this scratchy relationship between what I was reading in the Gospels and what I was sort of being given in church culture. And I long story short, I left a banking job, I went to seminary, I started in ministry, and I was in a fine church, but still this scratchy relationship played out. Until the point where, with a colleague, we started a new church, which is Hope Church, and we tried to say, could we start a church that we think really helps people in this relationship with Jesus and reduces the obstacles that a lot of people face in their religious searches? How's
it going?
Well, lately, great. I mean, we're experiencing a lot of really exciting stuff. Our church has grown dramatically in the last few years, and that's wonderful. It's everything you hope for, but growth challenges are challenging too.
So what do you want? You wrote this book because you couldn't find anything as a resource to give somebody who's just beginning their search and their walk. Right. So what do you want those people to get from this?
What I hope people get from this, first of all, is warm encouragement. I think sometimes in church culture, there's this unspoken message, which is you're not supposed to ask questions, you're not supposed to doubt. And to me, asking questions and a healthy degree of skepticism are really the fuel of how we really grow. So there's a message in the book, which is we hope you'll be encouraged to ask questions and be honored in the way you're asking your questions, be given dignity in that process. And then two, Nicole and I have talked about this a lot. When I read the parable of the sower, and you're probably familiar with it, to summarize it, Jesus describes 4 seeds that fall into the ground, and only one of them grows to maturity. So 25% of that seed grows to maturity. And one of the things a phrase I've used is, I want this book to try to see if we can help increase our percentages in the parable of the sower.
Wow. Well, folks, this is a tremendous resource. It's a book, you can hold it right there in the palm of your hand. It's entitled Start Here, Beginning a Relationship with Jesus. And let me encourage you to get it out, put out by David Cook Publishing. I'm sure you could check it out at Evangel or Christian Discount Books in Jacksonville, or it's online, I'm sure, at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and get a copy of it. David, you're a delight. Thanks. I love your spirit, and best to you and your church. You got anything else coming out soon?
Not quite at the moment, because I have this thing called weekend sermons that are tyrannical every week.
I know the drill. Well, thanks, my friend. God bless you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
All right. See you later. All right. Oh, by the way, we have 2 of these to give away. Callers 9 and 10 will get a copy at 776-5368. Callers 9 and 10 will get a copy. 776-5368. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
All right, we're back, and delighted to have back with us Sarah Robertson. She's with Ventana Wellness, and today we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of you suffer with, and that's called allergies. And are you an allergy sufferer? Well, take 2 of these and call me in the morning. No, we'll talk to Sarah instead. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good. I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you. Well, it's that time of year. Things are blooming, and people are sneezing.
That's right, and boy, is it ever out in bloom, those sneezes. I'm seeing them in the office all day long.
Really?
And a lot of it has a lot to do with the grass allergies coming up currently, and a lot of trees are actually creating pollens that are blowing in everybody's face.
It will pass?
Well, it depends on your response. Everybody has different responses to allergies. And so depending on your response, you can have really mild symptoms, such as just some itchy eyes or some runny nose, stuffy nose, maybe a little bit of an itchy throat. But other people are just sneezing and congested in their sinuses all day long, sometimes for months.
Wow, and I've seen some of these severe allergy sufferers, and it's no easy thing.
No, definitely not. But there's lots of things to do for them.
Like?
So one of the things is, it really depends on the degree of symptoms. Sometimes it's just as easy as taking something over the counter, like some Claritin or some Zyrtec. Or if your symptoms are primarily at night, you can, of course, take Benadryl, which can cause drowsiness.
Yeah.
But when you have more severe symptoms, you're even looking to the point of maybe getting home and rinsing off pollen from your body when you walk in the door after work that day.
Really?
And taking off those clothes that might still be carrying some of those pollen allergens.
Is allergies, is it passed from one generation to another?
To a certain extent, I think people's physical and physiological responses can be hereditary to a certain extent, but definitely not always.
Can you treat allergies without all this over-the-counter stuff? Are there some things you can do? You
can. One of the cheapest and most effective ways to treat allergies is to actually get a neti pot, which is one of those little sinus rinsing pots. Yes, or even a bulb syringe, and you do a little bit of distilled water, some boiled water that's been cooled, and you put that up into your nose and through your sinuses, and that really helps to wash out some of that pollen that continues to create a reaction and some of the mucus. And the best ways I tell people to do that are twice a day if you want to have effective treatment. Once in the morning to watch out the nighttime dusts and allergens, and then again when you get home from work later in the day.
Well, we're in that season where this could be going on all summer long.
That's right.
You know, and can you get tested for this so you know exactly what you're suffering from?
You can. Sometimes that's an effective method of treating, so that the reason you would consider getting tested is if you want to consider doing immunotherapy. And that would be shots. Some people get allergy shots. And the other way is there's actually, you've probably heard about it recently, been that sublingual grass pill that's been approved from the FDA, been used for years over in Europe.
It works, huh?
It does for the right people, people that have the grass allergy, so it's not going to just cure everybody's allergies. But they do it by giving you small amounts of the product that you're allergic to in a sublingual form, in this case grass, and you kind of work up your immune system to be able to be more tolerant of that.
What's in the future? Because I mean, can you ever get over this?
Some people can. There's definitely things that make them worse. For example, stress. We always talk about stress.
Oh, that thing.
Man.
Oh, the stress thing. Oh, well, then we're all going to die.
You just can't escape it. Yeah, and it makes allergies worse.
Really?
And if you're not eating healthy and you're not sleeping properly makes allergies worse. So you really need when you know that allergy season is coming, up those leafy greens, up those veggies, up the fruit, down the sugar, down the dairy. I know some people in the medical community don't believe that dairy has a significant influence in mucus production, but there's definitely some studies out there that show that if you can decrease that sugar and that dairy, you can have an improved response to
Is allergy fungus?
Allergies can be, it's not really an allergy is just a broad term to cite the symptoms that we have, such as those runny noses.
Because I know sugar fuels the fungus.
And it fuels bacteria also, but you're talking about candida, I think, primarily. And there's also molds, that are almost, a sister in that category. And so they're really, the allergies are responses to all these things, including funguses and molds and mildews and pollen.
All right, so the first thing to do is probably take a look at your diet.
And your sleep.
And your exposure, and maybe get rid of some of the, especially if you're working outside. But
Right. Even people who are just doing yard work, if they have significant allergies, birch, ash, walnut trees. Sometimes it's even better if they actually use a mask and cover up when they're outdoors working. And I think one of the things that we often do is we think, let me air out the house. Let me open up those windows, especially at night. It's getting so hot. Well, not yet, but later this week. and opening those windows is probably one of the worst things you can do for your allergies. So shut those windows at night and make sure that your air filters are clean.
All right, so you're wheezing and sneezing and your eyes are watering and you're coughing, your throat scratchy. When do you give in to medication?
So probably that wheezing, that's a good sign, especially if you have a tendency toward allergic asthma, then that would be a sign that you need to start using your inhaler or go to your provider and have them evaluate you for a need for further treatment. But there's lots of prescription remedies, of course, that we always try these at-home things too, which would include, actually one thing I didn't mention is essential oils. You can actually diffuse essential oils into the air in your home to kind of calm down that allergic rhinitis that's popping up, which is inflammation in the membrane. But when you go in, it's because you've done these things and your symptoms haven't improved.
Are some of these antihistamines addictive?
I wouldn't say they're addictive unless you're overusing them. For example, one of the ones are the nasal steroids.
But if you suffer, you get relief, I guess,
Right. So what the key, I guess, is to make sure that you're using it for a short-term therapy because you've had a sudden surge of symptoms and you know that it's expected to go away soon. It's just because, this particular thing is blooming.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at using some Astelin or something on an ongoing basis, then that's, in a way, it's addictive because now you're used to having that rhinitis controlled or that nasal congestion controlled. And then once you stop using it, after a time, you end up getting rebound nasal congestion. So then it almost feels like an addiction because you need to keep using it to control that nasty congestion.
All right, can you be tested for grass allergies like you can for food allergies?
You can. You can actually go and do patch testing over at the Allergy and Asthma Center.
Really?
Yep, and that would be one of those reasons to consider if you feel like you have really severe symptoms and they're not controlled through these other methods.
Well, it might help on what you put or not put in your yard, wouldn't it?
That I don't know if it, are you talking about a type of grass that you might use
that
versus
or a
otherwise?
plant or a tree or, if you're really bad, suffer.
If it's really bad, I suppose that can help, but the problem is there's all this wind that blows. You have we talk about, for example, farms and their cross-contamination with crops. So if you can't get away from a farm's cross-contamination, how can you get away from the pollen that's just in our local valley?
Right.
So maybe a small difference.
Well, we're into the season, so the first thing they ought to do if they're suffering real bad is call you.
That's right. Well, no, the first thing they should do is sleep well, eat healthy, and do some sinus rinsing. Cheapest, most effective.
Is that where you turn yourself upside down?
So that's where you get that little pot. And I will tell you, I tell all of my patients. I know it works.
I did it one time, and I just thought, why am I doing this? But I had such a congestion in my sinuses. I mean, I was really miserable. But mine was candida in the sinuses.
Right. Did it help?
It did.
Right. Yeah, people will actually
Did I like doing it? No. But it worked.
People will put essential oils in there sometimes too, some lemon or peppermint.
Does that work?
To help clear out those sinuses because of the fact that they help with things like fungi and mold spores and things like that. But it's really, it feels like you're drowning yourself when you first do that.
Yeah.
You have water up your nose. It's horrible feeling.
Yeah.
And after, I would say if you can get past the first two, then usually your body adjusts and it says, oh, you're not really trying to drown me.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And after that, it's just a really effective method of moving forward and flushing those sinuses.
Okay. Well, any last minute tips?
It's really all about drinking water and making sure that you're staying away from the things that you think are affecting you the most and preserving yourself from that. So staying indoors instead of outdoors and having an air humidifier, an air cleanser in your house.
Cleanser.
Yeah, that can be helpful. So those are expensive, but helpful.
I do know that it's very troublesome for a lot of people and a tough thing to deal with, but it does eventually subside sooner or later.
Yes, I agree.
Allergy sufferers love winter.
Yeah, and those over-the-counter meds are helpful if you need to get to that point.
Okay, and then get a hold of you there at Ventana.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. Compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, I tell you what, it's always a joy to have Robin Fuller here, and she's with the Grants Pass Pregnancy Care Center. She's the director there, and she's a live wire, and she's got more energy than any one person should be allowed to have. I don't know what she puts on her cereal in the morning, but I want some of it. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you. Well, you got all kinds of things going on. Let's kind of take them in order. You got the Silver Ring thing coming up, which is a great event.
Silver Ring thing, this is what, the fifth or sixth time that we've hosted it in Grants Pass.
Yeah.
So the Silver Ring thing is a national touring group that goes around the country, and they have this high energy, fun show with music and videos and drama and testimonies, and all encouraging kids to put on a silver ring and to make a commitment of abstinence until marriage.
Wow.
Which is, of course, as you know, not the most common of themes amongst teens these days.
Right, right.
But the last time we hosted it, we had over 400 kids put on silver rings, and
wonderful?
Had 184 kids walk down in front of their peers and make a commitment to Jesus. And so we know that isn't always the end all, that commitment, but even the founder of the Silver Ring thing, Denny Patton, he said he made 13 altar calls before it finally stuck. So his philosophy is let him come.
Let him come.
Walk down as many times as you need to.
That's wonderful. All right, that's coming up May 7th, and people want to attend. What do they do?
The Pregnancy Care Center covers the cost of the event, so kids can come free.
Really?
And it's at the Performing Arts Center.
They're calling it a one-night stand?
Yeah,
a
one-night stand, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Boy, that is great.
So it's Wednesday night, May 7th. A lot of churches are just taking their youth groups.
Yeah.
It does fill up. I would say get there early. My biggest fear is I don't want to turn anybody away.
Right.
But whenever we've hosted it packs that Performing Arts Center with kids.
This is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. May 7th, put it on your calendar, and if you're a youth pastor, you may want to do what others are doing and take your group over there that Wednesday night.
And I think Treva from the Loft, I think she's bringing a whole group of girls.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And there is a parent seminar as well. So if you're a parent and you want to hear more information about how to talk with your kids or protect your kids, it's a good opportunity for you as well.
Okay. All right, it's called the Silver Ring Thing, one night stand. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Coming up May 7th, they're at the Performing Arts Center in Grants Pass, so put that on your calendar. Now, the Grants Pass Pregnancy Care Center underwrites this, so we got to help them underwrite it.
Well, and also it's $20 for a ring.
Yeah.
And there are kids who come to this and they don't have money for a ring. So we're always actively seeking ring scholarships.
Okay.
So anyone who's interested in making a donation to us specifically to cover the cost of some rings. I know there was one year, one person I think wrote a check for $500.
Really?
And a lot of kids were able to get rings where they might not have been able to
before. Should they contact you if they want to do that?
Absolutely.
At the Grants Pass Pregnancy Care Center. You know, $100, there's 5 rings. Maybe you could do 50 or 40. You could buy 2, buy 1. And you know, they put that on, and that's pretty significant.
Yeah, you see quite a few of those rings around. It always makes my heart smile.
Well, that's wonderful. All right, so then your fundraiser is coming up May 21st.
Yes, we're doing our first ever golf marathon fundraiser, and it's different than a lot of different golfing events. We have a small number of golfers who are going to be golfing all day long on Wednesday, May 21st, and each one is committed to raise a certain amount of funds. I think it's $2,000 each that they're committed. And so they're actively looking for people to adopt them as golfers. But it's a lot of fun, and it's been a great way to see men get involved. We have men who we've never even seen their faces, some who weren't even on our mailing list, who have found a way to help us. And so we're so excited. If you're interested in adopting one of our golfers, it's just a great thing.
Are you filled up with golfers?
We're looking for a few more golfers if anyone's
so they play
interested
golf
in golfing.
all day on that Wednesday?
They play golf all day, but anybody of any age can do it. It's not like you're running from hole to hole, and they really make it fun. We feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's an awards ceremony, and it's something we hope will grow over time.
Well, there you go. If you want to play golf all day on the 21st of May, and
at Dutcher Creek.
But go out and get some sponsors, you know, raise about $2,000. I was so much a hole, I guess, right?
Well, and it's hosted, who we brought in is Jim Coles. He's with golfpromarathons.com, and so he's a pro, and he comes in and he walks alongside the golfers. He gives you golf tips all day long. He even gives you a little video of you know, doing some of your golfing, and he'll help walk you through it to make your game better.
All right. It doesn't get better than that, and it all goes for a great cause. And let me encourage you to get a hold of Robin and the team there at the Grants Pass Pregnancy Care Center.
And I have to tell you, it's not what I put on my Wheaties in the morning. It's just something that you know, my whole organization says, Robin has enough vision for the entire organization. If we can just, you know, do all the things in her head.
Well, I love your energy and I love your passion. It's really passion that makes all this work. All right, you do all of this because you are saving babies and helping girls.
Yes.
Go for it.
Absolutely.
What's next on
Well, the next thing that we have an opportunity. We have 2 brand new nurses who are going to be coming onto our staff.
Right.
And they're going to be trained in limited OB ultrasound. And in order to do that, we need lots of pregnant bellies. And so we are looking, this is next week, and then we're doing it also the week of the 21st, the same week as the Silver Ring thing and the golf tournament marathon. But if you are pregnant, or you have a friend who's newly pregnant, or your daughter is newly pregnant, we're looking next week for more early term pregnancies. And then the week of the 21st, we're looking for pregnant up to 24 weeks. So we really need more models. And if you come over, I'll even give you, if you come from Medford, I'll give you, you know, $10 gift, and I'll even give you a free coffee drink card. So
just to have an ultrasound done.
Just to have an ultrasound.
And that's for training.
Won't cost you anything. It's for training, educational purposes. And it's a great opportunity. We're bringing in a team who they do this around the country and actually train these nurses. And I'm so blessed to be able to do this because it's in that ultrasound room where, you know, God reveals to these women their child in the womb. And it's a beautiful thing to watch a woman decide to carry that pregnancy to term.
And sometimes they don't want to know the sex of the child, so you cover that part up.
Well, we don't do we don't do any diagnostic stuff. That would be considered diagnostic.
Oh, really?
When I say limited OB, we're just looking to make sure the pregnancy is in the womb where it should, that there's a heartbeat, and the gestational age.
Well, there you go.
So,
that's wonderful.
But we need models. So really, if you know anyone who's pregnant, send them, have them call us 479-6264. And
6264.
come really help us out because we need more women in our schedule.
Well, there's an invitation if you're pregnant or you know someone that it is and you want to be a part of an ultrasound training. Take your little pregnant person over there and let them practice on you. But anyway, it's great. And not to mention the fact that the reason that the ultrasound is there is to help women make that decision, right? Mm-hmm. And how's that been working for you?
You know, it's working. It's really difficult when you're working with women in those hard situations. And I've talked about them before when I've come on here. You know, we're not dealing with just pregnant teenagers. Right. We're dealing with women who their husband's in the military overseas and they had an affair. Yeah. Or, you know, they're hard circumstances that we're working with. But and they don't always, when they see that picture on the ultrasound screen, they don't always change their mind. But it's still a success because if they come to us, we love them. We plant the seeds of the gospel of Christ into their hearts. We don't always talk with them about God or about Jesus, but we're praying for them. And we're praying for them while they're there. And by the time they leave our doors, hopefully they realize if they wanted to continue that pregnancy, they could, and they could trust us, and we would help them.
But the success, the numbers are still in favor that this has turned more women to keeping their baby than could possibly be imagined.
Yes.
And it's just a huge thing. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the whole subject of abstinence. You're teaching it, the pledges that are made. Are teenagers getting it?
Some of them are.
Okay.
Some of them still don't, but I'll take any of them I can get.
There you go. That's the answer. All right, we'll take a quick break, and Robin Fuller's with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back with Robin Fuller, and she's the director of Grants Pass Pregnancy Care Center. Today we're talking about a lot of things, and let me just give you a couple of reminders. First of all, the Silver Ring thing, May 7th, that's a Wednesday, and a week from this Wednesday, isn't it? Yeah, wow, man, how things happen fast. Anyway, it's a free event. It's going to be there at the Performing Arts Center in Grants Pass, and let me tell you, get your kids to this, and you better get there early because that does pack out. And be prepared. And if you want to be a sponsor of some rings, they're about $20. And the kids that make the commitment to stay abstinent until marriage get this silver ring. They put on a ring. They're about $20.
Yeah.
And so maybe you'd like to sponsor some of those. And if you do, get a hold of Robin there and Grants Pass, and that's 479-6264. And that's area code 541-479-6264. That's number one. Number two, their Day of Golf fundraiser. Now, this is different. They're going to have golfers play golf all day long in sponsorship, and so you can, if you still have some holes for or opening for people who want to play golf all day.
Yes.
I can't imagine playing golf all day. Oh well. Anyway, but you can get some sponsors. and that's one of their big fundraisers. And that'll be coming up May 21st. Again, call the Pregnancy Care Center at 479-6264. And if you're pregnant or know somebody that's pregnant and they want to do some ultrasound training, and so bring your pregnancy to Robin, right?
Bring your pregnant belly.
Your pregnant belly to Robin coming up, and that's for a whole week.
We're doing it for 2 weeks. The week of May 5th and the week of May 19th.
Wow. All right, for the next couple of weeks.
So we need lots. We need like 75.
75. Wow.
Pregnant bellies.
All right, so no matter where you are, whether you're in Josephine County, Jackson County, or if you're watching on Roku and you're somewhere out there, drive to Grants Pass, Oregon, and they'll do a free ultrasound. And give them a call, 479-6264. All right, where are we going with the subject of abstinence?
Well, abstinence is really one of the hearts of the Pregnancy Care Center. And in addition to the silver ring thing, we did actually just write an abstinence program that now is in almost every middle and high school, public and private, in Josephine County, and in some in Jackson County as well. And I know for a lot of people, when you even mention abstinence to these teens, it's a foreign concept. They don't even know about it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about a book that I've read recently to help people understand, how do we reach these kids? How do we even speak their language? Especially the younger part of the millennial generation, those born after 1990, they just seem foreign to us who are older. Right. The way they think, the way they act. And I read this amazing book lately, and it just really helped open my eyes.
Is it here?
Uh-huh. And it's that one.
Called Generation Y.
IY.
IY. Our last chance to save their future.
Yeah, it is.
There's a picture of it on the
It
screen.
is really a great book, and it talks about these kids. And you know, when you look at them, some people call them screenagers. You know, they know how to connect with a screen, little or big. Some of them, it's hard to carry on a full conversation, you know, especially with someone of an, older generation. And one of the biggest things that they're not being taught is emotional intelligence. You know, they can get the book learning. You can take even 4.0 kids that are graduating, and they get a job and they're lost because they don't know how to interact with people. They don't know how to problem solve. They don't know how to really think through different issues and problems. And one of those is even, how do we live? You know, how do we, if you want to live an abstinent lifestyle, how do you do that? Well, that takes communication. You have to talk. You have to talk with your parents. You have to talk with your boyfriend or your girlfriend. You have to be able to communicate well. And so this generation, it talks about just different things. 26 is the new 18. You know, where for our generation, 18, you were out there, you had a job, you were actually doing things. Well, now up to 90% of kids are coming back home after college.
Right, 90%.
Yeah. And another amazing statistic, 50 years ago, almost 70% of college students were males. Now, Tim Elmore says that it's 41%.
Wow.
Are males.
Wow.
In college.
Wow. Wow, some real shifts.
There's some real shifts, but this generation is the most pro-life generation ever.
Really?
Because they've grown up with the ultrasounds. It's pretty hard to tell them it's not a life.
Yeah.
And they're the most ambitious, and they have the best self-esteem, and they're the most visionary. There's some amazing things about this generation, and show them a leader worth following, and they will follow. But they don't like hypocrisy, and they can smell it coming from a mile away, so you have to be really honest in how you talk with them.
I also know that they're very serving. They'll drop and go serve. And again, it goes to what you're saying there on the leadership. But I was stunned to find out that after the earthquake in Haiti, the average age that left their job and went and helped was 21. So they have this servant heart. So where does the subject of life in abstinence and pro-life, where is that mixed in? How do they become so pro-life?
Well, part of it, like I said, they see truth as truth, And this is the first generation. They don't need any adults to get information. I mean, just think about that concept. They can get information on anything.
Anywhere.
They don't need adults in their lives. So where they need adults in their lives are relationship. And their relationships look different than what we think of. Like if we think of mentoring, we think we're going to meet every week. It's going to be a set time. We're going to go through a curriculum. For them, it's got to be much more organic. It's got to be, let's meet when I need to, and let's meet here and this time and different places. But they need that relationship, and they see truth as truth.
Are they rejecting the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s?
Oh, some of them are. It's very difficult for them to lead a truly abstinent lifestyle when you really talk about purity of heart. And that's where we need to really reach them. Their culture is throwing out them so hard and so furious. The need to just be free sexually. And what they're hit with is that marriage doesn't work. There's so many broken homes, the lack of fatherlessness. It's such a big topic for them. Yet, I just read a statistic 2 days ago that for kids who watch MTV, 93% of them still want to find that one person and get married and be in a committed relationship. So they want it. I think God has put it on their heart, but how to live that, how to put the proper boundaries up to be able to live that. And you and I know that it's falling in love with Jesus that's going to make them successful.
And that brings in even the guest I had before you, talking to people like that, not down to them, but relating to them and creating that hunger for Christ. What do you say to a person in that category or in that generation that has slipped but realizes now, I made a mistake and I want to go forward purely?
Well, I think the biggest thing is God's grace. You know, He gives that to all of us, and we can start over and over and over. And even as my pastor said yesterday, you know, sometimes when you get so far away from God, when you talk about, you know, He says, I am the vine and you are the branches. Sometimes it's not even about a vine. Sometimes you have to rototill the whole thing under and start over, you know, plant a new vine. And that's what God's grace does. And the silver ring thing even brings up, you know, this is a time for second chances. If you've already had sex, it's, you know, you can commit from this day forward to live that abstinent lifestyle. So that's what's so nice about God, is He gives second chances and third chances and 10th chances, and we can always go back.
Are the guys getting it?
Oh, you know, with a lack of fathers, one of the things we would really like to do, I know one of my visions that I have is to do much more in the area of abstinence. And there's so much more for girls. There's the loft, there's, you know, purity retreats, but there's not as much for guys. If we could teach more of these guys, almost kind of a big brother kind of thing, but where men can walk alongside of younger men and show them, what does it mean? What does it mean to live pure of heart? Especially in this culture, when they don't see modesty modeled, and they don't see, you know, they see so much. So for the guys, yeah, some of them get it, but until we really walk alongside of them and introduce them to Christ and that purity of heart, I think it's going to be hard.
Wow. And it's so true, too. Unless there's a relationship with Christ, then it's pretty tough.
But even just, you know, our abstinence program that's in the schools is not religious-based in the public schools, but it just makes sense.
Well, what kind of programs are out there? I mean, what are you doing in a school on that, on abstinence? How do you?
Well, what we do is it's more based on common sense, character development and goal setting, and who do you want to be, and stop long enough to think about that. And how could a sexual relationship interfere with those plans? What could that look like? Just on the basis of health. There's not just pregnancy, but 1 out of every 4 sexually active teenagers has a sexually transmitted disease or infection. And most of those are asymptomatic. You can't tell you have them. And so if you know, you're involved in something, that one time sexual experience, if you get a disease or an infection, that could lead to not being able to have children. It could lead to all kinds of health issues. So we have a nurse who actually goes in and talks about STDs to the students. And so we may not be able to really introduce them to Christ, but we can talk with them about how any type of sexual activity can interfere with their life and their goals and their plans, and introduce them the word abstinence, which they may never have even heard before.
Do you see boys going forward on silver ring things?
Yeah, the last time it was probably about even. It was about 50-50.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
You know, they're hungry. God puts in our heart
A hunger for truth.
a hunger for truth.
Right.
And when they see it and they hear it and they respond.
I'm hearing something else here that I haven't heard for a while, and maybe it's a result. I haven't read this book, so you can tell me if it's in there. There for a while, young people didn't see a future.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't see anything out there that let them know that there was a future for them. But now they're thinking family. Now they're thinking down the road. Now they're thinking careers.
Well, and one of the things that we have done as boomers is we have put so much pressure on them. This book says that they feel so much pressure to respond and to act certain ways and to achieve, that there is not a midlife crisis, there's a quarter life crisis. That these kids, we've handed them so much and given them so much that their expectations are so high of themselves that by the time they hit 25 and they haven't achieved all they thought, they crash. They crash, and depression does really hit. So we've made it so easy for them. The first chapter in this book slams us, because we have protected them so much. They're the most overprotected group. And so we need to operate different if we really want to reach them and take some of that pressure off and help them really achieve.
Robin, are you seeing students evangelize, so to speak, students on this issue? Do you see these kids that maybe go to the silver ring thing, put the ring on, begin to talk to their friends about abstinence?
Yeah, some of them do. I mean, they are so excited when they see the silver ring thing truck pull up and they know what's coming that day. And a lot of kids go, silver ring thing is really, it's an evangelistic tool. So you're not going to walk in and experience church. You're going to walk in and you're going to hear some secular music, and you're going to see some skits that if your kid is 12 years old, if your child is 12 and you haven't really talked with them about sex, you might not want to bring them to the silver ring thing. But even though you haven't talked with them about sex, their friends have. Mm-hmm. And you know, this talks their language, but it introduces them. It all brings it back around to the gospel of Christ. It's a beautiful thing.
Wow. All right. I got about a minute and a half. I want to recap some things here and have you prayerfully consider getting involved. The Silver Ring thing is coming to Grants Pass Performing Arts Center on May 7th, and it's called a one-night stand, which is interesting. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And it is free, so you may want to make arrangements to get there early. And they do need some ring sponsors and scholarships. In other words, a ring costs $20. And if you want to buy some rings, call Robin or call the Pregnancy Care Center in Grants Pass, area code 541-479-6264, and offer to sponsor or, some of those rings. And they can give out free that night for people who make the commitment to remain abstinent. And then the golf fundraiser day coming up May 21st. Check that out. And if you are pregnant and you want a free ultrasound, they need some pregnant bellies to ultrasound and to practice on and train on. And so get a hold of them there as well. 479-6264. Robin, you're an inspiration and delight. Thank you. Keep up the good work and let us know how it goes, okay?
Hey, we will. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in. Okay, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.